Our next guest doesn't need much introduction to us up here in Northern England. Some of us probably attended the big meeting in Durham last July and heard Laura make an incredibly moving and powerful speech. And some of the words resonated with me. She said, "We are one movement. We are connected through our shared struggle, our principled beliefs and our unwavering optimism. We are one people standing up against the brutality of this system." You can hear the emotion in my voice because that spoke to me. As long as we've been developing Nell, this idea of a united movement, it is at the core of our values and principles. We aspire to produce candidates like Laura, people who understand the struggle, people willing to stand together against those who try to beat us down. So welcome, Laura, and thank you for coming to speak to us today on the topic of where does hope for our future lie? Laura Pidcock.
Thank you so much, and well done on being elected co-chair just this morning. And
Thank you.
it is really you know, it's a Saturday afternoon and there's still 128 people on quite a few hours now. It is excellent that you have organised this and that there is still a willingness to organise around Labour. And I mean the Labour movement, so yes, inside the Labour Party and outside of it too, across the entire movement. So honestly, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. And it was really nice, I logged in a bit earlier to listen to Jeremy, John and Clive having it out a bit about the future of politics, and also welcome to Mary Pidcock, who's doing her first Zoom ever. I don't know what page she's on. Lots of you might be thinking, how has she managed to get this far through the pandemic and this be your first Zoom? But I've campaigned alongside so many of you on this call in the general election, after general election, after general election, in constituencies all around our region, in moments of pure, unadulterated optimism, and in moments, it has to be said, of despair. In our most promising moments, it was truly hopeful for so many people, and that's what I've been asked to speak about today. Like, where is the hope? Where does it lie? And in those hopeful moments, there was a promise that in the not too distant future, we would have started our journey to creating a world which was safer, more secure, warmer, brighter, where people didn't have to like live in the greyness of poverty, where the spirits of the most exploited and insecure people would be collectively lifted from their place of suffering. And finally, that there would be a group of people in charge, in power, who were on the side of the oppressed in the UK and across the world. And to put it bluntly, we were defeated. We were well and truly defeated. We were defeated by some of our own. We were defeated by liberalism, defeated by a desire to stay in the European Union above all else, defeated by the right and the hard right. We were defeated by so many factors by the time the 12th of December came. All of their collective efforts to defeat socialism aligned. And let's be honest, that's what they were trying to do. People know Jeremy Corbyn's like the canniest man you can ever meet. He's so nice. They were trying to defeat our socialism. They were trying to defeat the hope and that challenge to the system that he represented. And in the northern region, we have felt the decline in our connectiveness, the Labour Party's connectiveness, that people had, the people that we live alongside, to our loved ones, to the people that we work with. We could see that decline in connectiveness. We could feel it, and we warned it, especially over Brexit. Now, our defeat, what I've just said there, is a gross simplification. I don't have time to indulge too much in my own personal reflections here, but our defeat was a result of 1,000 defeats, not one. And it certainly was not about a defeat of socialism. I'm sure we do not see that democratic exercise in the depths of winter as a referendum on a different world. Far from it. We're sitting here today at the start of a global pandemic. We're sitting here today in the knowledge that there are 4.3 million children in poverty, millions of people working harder and longer hours than ever before, but not able to pay their bills. So endemic poverty pay. We're sitting here at a time where we have an acute understanding that disabled people have not only been atrociously treated during the decade of austerity, but during this pandemic too. So 2 in 3 people who have died during this pandemic are disabled people. We know that the threat to us all is in clear sight, that of climate breakdown resulting in climate catastrophe. It's not a distant prospect, but a daily reality that's been said on this call. We know true that Trump and Johnson at the helm, that war is ever present. Not that there's a threat of war, but it is ever present. And so to not be utterly dejected by all of that, utterly hopeless, we must look for what to do, because there are only two options ahead of us, and it is socialism or barbarism. And I think I had very recently had the pleasure, privilege, whatever, of interviewing Noam Chomsky, and he said, at a time of crisis, when you are faced with these two options, so faced with those people who wish to intensify and replicate the system from the crisis that we already have, there are two options. You can kind of subsume yourself, become apologist for that system, subsume yourself into it, even contribute to the harm, or you can resist against it. And I am sure you are all on this call because you choose resistance and you choose socialism, because we know that there are absolutely no free market capitalist solutions to the multiple crisis we face. We know that common ownership and democratic solutions are what will take us there. And I'm firmly of the view that we have to be more ambitious. So yes, 2019, that manifesto was a manual for a much, much better United Kingdom and better world. But we have to be more ambitious than that. We have to be more brave and more organised than ever before. Yes, inside the Labour Party and outside of it too. And there's a few things that I think we need to concentrate on to kind of take us to a more hopeful place. So I think firstly, we must seek to open up and create the social spaces which have been decimated by Thatcherism. So Thatcher knew that in order to divide working class people, in order to smash organised labour, that you have to also smash the spaces where we as a movement consciousness raise and organise as a class. So the social clubs, community centres, spaces where we congregated were smashed, where we socialised with each other, have a good time with each other, become more and more kind of capitalistic and commercialised. We need to put back those spaces, and those spaces need to be useful to our class and our community. So I am talking about food distribution, cooking schools, welfare rights, advice, clothing assistance, solidarity grants when emergencies hit, and of course for those spaces to be political and unashamedly so. I also want us to think, again, to take us to a more hopeful place about our politics. I think we must also refute a drive towards liberal politics masquerading as left-wing or socialist. We know that conservative ideology, politics which wishes to intensify the capitalist system, is what we are ideologically against, of course. But the rise of liberal identity politics, where we spend all of our time and energy focusing on the interpersonal forms of oppression and bigotry amongst working class people, and no energy and no time on the system, structural, and the global rise of fascistic, racist, neoliberal, and neo-imperialist thinking, that kind of change in emphasis, that shift away from challenging the system, will only lead to a strengthening of the right wing and a perpetual division of the left. So what I'm not saying here, comrades, is that we shouldn't be utterly principled in our challenging of prejudice, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, bigotry. That is a must. We must do that, but it is one element of our politics. And that challenge is rooted in solidarity with fellow working class people in all of our beautiful diversity. But we know that fundamentally it is the capitalist system which constructs all of the conditions which drive the deep inequalities and endemic exploitation of our class. It is socialism that liberates us as a collective. we must also, I believe, and I suppose this is my kind of final key point, first about creating those spaces for our movement and organising and politicising them. Second, a rejection of liberal politics and the drive towards that kind of masquerading as socialism. And third is to put considerable time and attention into the extra parliamentary movement for two reasons. We must acknowledge that there is a growth of the far right, that there is a real and I think highly probable threat that at the next general election there will be a far right party formed and they will fight that next general election, or they will threaten to form it so that it will push the Tory party even further to the right in their policy proposals. So the extra parliamentary movement, the People's Assembly, Stop the War Coalition, Keep Our NHS Public, Stand Up Against Racism, they are so important in fighting that politics. And secondly, the extra parliamentary movement is to put pressure on the Labour Party too, to make sure that we are pushing left all of the time on the Labour Party. That left pressure is so important on our new Labour Party, because this is the fundamental kind of point of, I suppose, me speaking to you here today, and I am very pleased to be here, is that hope alone, just saying that things can be better, provides only temporary and almost superficial comfort, but it is our organising and our dedication, a consciousness raising of our loved ones, which is the real source of hope. So we must create those spaces, organise within them, build a powerful socialist current in the Labour Party. That is so important, that we are so robust and so strong within the Labour Party, because crises can take us anywhere, and it is of course socialist principles that have the solutions to many of our problems. We must build strong and powerful resistance and organising in the extra parliamentary movement against this government, and all the while make the case for what is possible and what can be different. We have the solutions, there isn't any doubt about that. We have the critical mass, if you like, we have the power, we have the skills and the knowledge. We just need to get organised, and not organised in just kind of having more meetings, but organising, occupying each and every single space with our politics, in making sure that we are providing that practical solidarity and making sure that socialists in whatever spaces and democratically held positions, that we're organising for those people to hold them. And finally, I know you heard from Gemma Bolton earlier today, is that right? And please do support the Grassroots Six, Nadia Jama, Yasmin Dar, Anne Henderson, Mish Rahman, Gemma Bolton and myself, of course, because these are crucial NEC elections. But overall solidarity with you and everything you want to achieve in this new grouping, and many, many thanks for having me.
Thank you, Laura. That was fantastic. Absolutely amazing as usual. Thank you so much. I think the passion and honesty is so refreshing. You're so missed in Parliament, holding this cruel and incompetent government to account. But your time will come again.
I've put a few years back on my life, Trish. I aged about 20 years into in Parliament.
You'll be back. I'm sure of it. Thank you so much for coming.